Nalini as well joining us on that. Nalini, the man we're speaking of here is a BJP MP. He was the WFI chief. He in fact completed his term but was defiant all throughout. Never resigned, said that he is innocent and this is just a vilification campaign against him by those wrestlers who tried to defame him for their own ulterior motives. This is what he's saying, and now with a charge sheet that's filed, nearly 1,600-page charge sheet in court, with evidence showing those photographs that we're playing on our screens as well, where it's quite evident that he's making some sexual advances or physical advances towards those victims. It seems like the doors are closing in, walls are closing in on Brij Bhushan.
Well, Nabila, there are some damning parts in this charge sheet, especially against Brij Bhushan, despite the fact that there is a detailed statement by Brij Bhushan himself, where he is given his part of the story and his defense, where he says that he has never travelled alone anywhere at any times during any tournament. He ensures that there are always referees or coaches or his security staff that accompanies him, and he has never really met any woman wrestler by himself alone. So these are the statements that Brij Bhushan himself has given in his response that are made part of the charge sheet. But along with that, the testimonies of the wrestlers also paint a very, very horrific picture, where they've spoken about the repeated sexual assault that Brij Bhushan had subjected them to ever since the year 2012 right up till 2022. So 10 years of repeated sexual assault instances have been laid out by the 6 women wrestlers very bravely in this charge sheet. And although there are certain aspects that are still under investigation, as stated by the Delhi police, because they've said that they've not been able to establish anything after the analysis of the call data records that they've got so far, and that they're still waiting for the forensic evidence regarding this case. Keeping those things in mind, there are likely to be many more twists and turns in the investigation in the coming days, because the Delhi police has also stated in the charge sheet that because of the protest that was ongoing of the wrestlers, due to that they were not able to take the wrestlers out of the city for investigation in different places, because the sexual harassment allegedly has happened in several different areas. So they need to take the wrestlers there for the investigation to be carried out, but they've not been able to do that because the protests were still going on. But now that the protests have been called off, the investigation on those aspects is going to continue, and we are going to have to wait and see exactly how far it goes. But for now, there is a slight relief coming in for Brij Bhushan Singh. Delhi police has categorically laid down their reasons for why they don't want to arrest him in the charge sheet, and today also they've said that they're only opposing his bail to the limited extent that some conditions need to be imposed upon him, which is slightly ironical considering the fact that those are the same reasons why the Delhi police has cited that they don't need to arrest him, because he has not tried to threaten or influence any witness in the case and has completely cooperated with the investigation. So for the Delhi police to now come and say there need to be certain conditions that need to be imposed upon him, it remains to be seen exactly why they did it. But for now, slight relief coming in for him, where day after tomorrow the hearing on the regular bail as to whether or not should be granted to him will be conducted.
You know, Nalini, we see a lot more points coming in by Shrishti Ojha from court, inside court, where we believe that Brij Bhushan has accused the media of conducting a trial against him. He says that he's being targeted by the media itself. Media doing its job, reporting on the wrestlers who sat in protest right from the month of Jan up to date. Months of protests, and finally it seems like the police have expedited the investigation here, filed a 1,600-page charge sheet, but it appears that Brij Bhushan feels like he's victimized here. How far will the court go to entertain such an allegation or clamp down on media reporting this case?
Well, Nabila, one thing that the court has made extremely clear today is that if there is any allegation that Brij Bhushan has to make, it can't be done in thin air. He has to move the appropriate application before the court, which means that if he is alleging a media trial, then he needs to go to the High Court and ask for a proper gag order to be put in place and put the money where his mouth is, and instead of making statements in thin air, get the things down on paper and move the court with an appropriate application. So the court is not going to take any statements just being made off record. They are going to ensure that everything is happens through the proper mechanism and through the proper procedure, and which is why when Brij Bhushan's counsel tried to make the argument that there is a media trial or there's an apprehension that a media trial might be going on, because the charge sheet has now reached several media houses, keeping that in mind, the Rouse Avenue Court categorically said that if he has any such apprehension, he should ask for a gag order or for in-camera proceedings, approach the appropriate court and try and get some sort of relief. Because for now, the court is not going to gag the media only on the basis of some apprehensions that are being raised by Brij Bhushan. But in the same breath, let me clarify, the court has also said that the media needs to be responsible when it comes to reporting cases, especially cases of sexual harassment, even though there are no minors in this case where the six women wrestlers have alleged charges of sexual harassment against Brij Bhushan. But at the same time, there needs to be some sort of prudence that needs to be carried out by the media organizations before reporting on such cases, especially with regard to the identities of the victims or rather survivors of the sexual harassment. So keeping that in mind, a word of warning is also coming in for the media from the court, but at the same time there is no gag order being put in place. It remains to be seen whether Brij Bhushan is serious enough about these allegations to actually go ahead and ask for a gag order on the media, because we've seen even in the past instances, the court usually doesn't take lightly to suppression of freedom of expression in any manner. So if Brij Bhushan actually makes such an argument before the court, he will have to show some cogent reasons about how there is an actual media trial that is going on against him with some proper evidence in place along with media reports, and these statements cannot be just made out of thin air before the court of law.
So, well, Nalini, clearly Brij Bhushan here is more apprehensive about the details of the charge sheet being leaked. He's accused the media of conducting a trial on him. Very upset that a lot of information of the charge sheet has now come out, including those very damning images that shows clearly on Brij Bhushan making those advances, physical advances towards some of those victims that could really add up against or amount to a conviction sooner than later. Nalini, thank you very much for joining us. But relief here briefly, barely for 2 days, for the axed WFI chief Brij Bhushan. In fact, Brij Bhushan, his tenure as the WFI chief has ended. He surely did not resign from it because he remained defiant on the allegations that were leveled against him, claiming his innocence. Delhi court has now granted him interim bail, and his regular bail plea would be heard on Thursday. This comes in the backdrop of some photographs that are quite incriminating as proof that's come out on the wrestlers' dangal for justice. There are photographs that we're showing to you here that confirm the suspended WFI, or rather the WFI chief who has completed his tenure, Brij Bhushan's presence at those events where alleged incident of sexual harassment took place. These form really a part of the technical evidence in the Delhi police's charge sheet against Bhushan Sharan Singh. 2 photographs allegedly show him making these advances towards the complainant. In the testimony given by 6 women wrestlers, there is mention of 10 such cases in which there's an allegation of molestation. The BJP MP faces some serious charges of sexual harassment, inappropriate touching, intimidation, stalking, etc.